hey, I don't really want to be here, you don't want to be here, but we're supposed to be honoring the birth of Jesus, so we're going to get through this thing. Lewis, you're going to be an ass.
Hey, Kelly, can I be Joseph?
No, you're going to be an ass.
This is going to be the worst week of my life. And also, the best.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Debating for America's Youth. Today we have another special interview with a guest. Today we have Ethan Gambriel. He plays second at Nationals in duo interpretation. He just graduated high school and he's from Missouri. How are you doing, Ethan?
I'm good.
Good. Okay. Well, first of all, I watched your piece, and it was absolutely hilarious, but also moving at the same time. So my first question is, how did you find the piece that you ended up using at Nationals?
So my partner and I, we searched all summer long. I would read scripts like every single day. We read books. I think we ended up cutting up to 10 pieces until it was 2 weeks before the first tournament, and we started reading this piece, and we were like, okay, I think this will work for us. But even then, all year long, we kept cutting it and rearranging it just to make it better.
Yeah, that makes sense. So how did you end up choosing the style where you kind of had your partner narrate over what was happening and you kind of pause? Because that was a really cool style and I ended up liking it. How did you find that? Did you come up with that or see someone else use it? Or
Yeah, so we kind of got inspiration from the Goldbergs or really any old sitcom where it's all these crazy things are happening and then the narrator is here's why this is relatable. So yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was really good, and it kind of kept me, along with the story. So, how did you? Was it nervous? Were you nervous at all being on the national stage? Being a finalist in duo, or how did you feel being on that stage?
There's a part of it that's nervous, but then mostly it just feels kind of unreal. And so, yeah, I was kind of nervous, but mostly I didn't feel anything.
Yeah, I mean, and you've been doing that piece most of that year, so you had known, you know what to do, and you just went out there and did it, I assume.
Yeah, exactly.
That's pretty cool. So you played a bunch of different characters, and I was able to distinguish between the characters and kind of know what the characters were like just from how you portrayed them. What's your key to playing different characters in duo?
I think in duo specifically, first you have to find a piece that has characters that you can do. If it was all these characters that I couldn't do, it wouldn't have been as good. And so I think the first piece of advice is find characters that you know that you'll be good at, but then also starting from the very basics of a character, how do they stand differently than the other characters, and then how is their voice different, and then the works of what goes into a character.
That makes sense. Yeah, well, you guys did a really great job up on the stage. It was clear who was which character, and they were so distinct. The grandpa who shot the snake, that was so awesome. I laughed so hard at that part. So it was really good. You guys were able to distinguish characters and also keep them very interesting. Is there any kind of characters that you really can't do, or can you impersonate most different kind of characters?
I think for me, the hardest characters to do are direct impersonations of people. I can do crazy kooky things all day long, but actually trying to be someone who's a real person is difficult for me.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I'm really bad at accents and impersonations, so that's all very foreign to me. I just stick to Congress, but
Yeah.
It's really awesome. I love watching people perform because it's so amazing, especially in speech and debate.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So what practices do you specifically do for duo? Before you've picked out your piece and just I guess practice you're changing characters and stuff like that, and what practice do you do once you actually find a script and start working on it?
So for Tyler and I, the biggest thing that we did pretty much every day, we would always we would get together, we would block our piece, and then we would record it and we would watch ourselves back to make sure that it looked clean, that it wasn't like messy, and that it was easy to understand. So the biggest practice that we did probably was recording ourselves and watching it like 20 million times.
So when you did you ever perform in front of other people that was not in a competition, or did you mainly just use a recording style to weed out mannerisms that you didn't like and lines that you really didn't like?
Yeah, so for like our team and for our coach, we would perform probably at least 2 or 3 times a week. And then we performed a few times like for a banquet and other places like that. So we had people like watching us pretty constantly all throughout the year.
I bet that made it less. It made you less nervous when you had to perform at nationals, because you've been doing it all year long, 3 to 4 times a week. So yeah, I bet you knew. I mean, you just knew what you had to do, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it's interesting because duo like has 2 people, whereas HI and DI have 1 person. Like, do you enjoy having that other person on stage with you versus just doing like performing by yourself? Like, what would you say were like the big differences, and why do you enjoy? I guess why do you enjoy doing duo with another person with you?
Yeah. So the interesting thing is like Tyler and I both actually do HI and DI. Well, I do HI, he does DI, and so our duo was like a really fun playground of like taking a little bit of like what I do, which is HI, and like being crazy and funny and having character pops. And then we took a little bit of what he did, which is like narration and like the heart of a story. And so duo was just super fun because we got to put both of those things together and then make like one hybrid, awesome, fun piece.
And when I was watching your guys' performance, it was really good because I found myself laughing, but also with like the ending and how like the story went, I was like, wow, this is a really deep story, and I'm finding it just absolutely hilarious. So yeah, that good mix of HI and DI was a really good mix in my opinion, and
Yeah.
I'm sure you guys thought the same thing. I mean, you guys did well, so obviously it was a good mix.
Well, and originally
Yeah.
we used to think like duo is kind of dumb because it's not separated between dramatic and funny and like. But this year we just really found our place, and like it was kind of freeing to be able to do both in one piece.
Yeah, and I could like thinking about it conceptually, it could seem like it would be a little bit choppy or take away from some of like the actual story or take away from some of the humor. But when I was watching through, it didn't really seem to take away from either one of those. It seemed to flow pretty well and be entertaining the whole way.
Thank you.
Yeah. So taking a step back, how did you first get into speech and debate? How did you hear about it, and what made you want to get involved?
Well, originally I ended up taking the class just because I was like, I have nothing else to fill up my schedule with. And so I took it, and I planned on dropping out because I was like, oh, speech and debate is weird and for lame people. But then I started doing HI my freshman year, and I qualified to nationals. So I was like, I really like this, and it's really fun. So that's how I got into it.
Oh, I remember my freshman year, I did a little bit of football and wrestling, and when I was doing that, I was like, oh, I'm too cool for these speech and debate nerds.
Yeah.
And then I got into my first Congress chamber, and I was blown away. I was like, I want to be exactly like those kids right there. I was like, I don't need this other stuff. This is like, it was so amazing to me. And watching and doing it myself, I was like, yeah, this is definitely my event. So I thought the same thing. Oh, it's just speech and debate. But then once you start getting involved, it's really awesome.
Yeah,
so
I
yeah,
agree.
that's pretty cool. So what would you say would be your favorite part of speech and debate? If you could say like 1 or 2 things about the entire club.
Oh my gosh. That's a really big question.
Yeah, it is.
I think that my favorite part of speech and debate, for me specifically, has been being able to like connect with people through this crazy thing that we all do. Like that's not really that normal in like school, and just being able to like make people laugh or like start conversations with people. And like the number one thing that I've gotten from speech and debate is like I'm not afraid to talk about policy or talk about like what's going on in the world, because like I know that I can use my voice, and I know that I'm educated enough to use it. And so like the relationships I've built and just like the knowledge is awesome.
Yeah, I think that's also something that I definitely noticed as well. Because when you're going around like and competing at like local tournaments and other tournaments, you start to meet people who you would not normally meet, and then especially on your local circuit, you get pretty close with the people you're competing against and like people on your team. So you really build these relationships that you wouldn't build outside of speech and debate. And I think that's something very special that I really enjoy about speech and debate. And almost every single person I've asked that question has answered the same thing: the relationships you build, and also the voice that speech and debate gives you to talk about things that are important to you.
Yeah.
So for like a new novice who is starting out duo, what would you tell them? What advice would you have? What strategies would you tell them to kind of help them do better, or maybe an HI or DI?
Yeah, I would tell anybody who's doing literally any piece ever, it's all about like creating your own style and figuring out what works for you. Because like Tyler and I obviously didn't do like a traditional 2-person duo that was like all really sad. We did something wacky and goofy that like hasn't really been done before. And so my advice would be like, don't just conform to the norms of what you've seen on main stage. Like make your own creation and like see where it takes you.
Yeah, and it seemed to work for you guys, so that's pretty awesome. And then I would say, what would you say, tell the speech and debate community as a whole? Just like what speech and debate, you've been in it, now you're graduating. So like, what would you tell the community that participates in speech and debate?
I would tell every person who participates in speech and debate, first and foremost, a really big thank you for creating a community that has been so helpful and so freeing and so fun for 4 years. And I would also tell everyone to just like keep being you, like just keep doing what you love to do and don't let anybody stop you from doing that.
And one other question for like a person starting out in HIDI or duo, how would you recommend them find like a piece that works for them? Because you talked about how you like read a bunch of books and like searched everywhere for it. How would you recommend someone else find a piece that they can use?
Yeah. So for me, unless you completely love it, I would say don't do it. For all the scripts that I did throughout my entire high school career, I would like read them, and if I was to like halfway through and I still didn't like it, then I would just stop reading. But like with the piece we found this year, like A Tiny Miracle, I started reading it, and it was like immediately I was like, I really like this. And then I kept reading and I never didn't like it. So that's how I chose it.
And during your piece, you said if you're awkward and you know it, clap your hands. And then you guys didn't clap your hands, and then the crowd did. How did that work out in like preliminary rounds or in like smaller rooms on like more the local circuit? Did people still clap their hands, or was like how did that end up going? Because it worked really well on the national stage.
Yeah.
Because you heard a lot of people clap their hands, and then you pointed at people, which was funny. But how did that work at like more of a local circuit tournament?
So
Just out of curiosity.
Yeah. That's a good question. Our intro was actually really different locally. It was something about like, it was nothing about being awkward. I can't even remember it at this point, but it was a completely different intro. When we got to nationals in like the smaller rooms, we did have the awkward and you know it intro. It was kind of funny because there would be rooms where like 1 or 2 people would clap and it would work in our favor. In some settings, no one would clap, but what we did to kind of safeguard ourselves is that I would always clap and Tyler wouldn't. So that if nobody clapped, it could be like me, the awkward one. So.
Makes sense. Well, it was hilarious on the stage watching it because when you did it, you heard a whole bunch of people clap, and I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah.
How that worked with you, but then I was like, on a smaller stage, I guess it would, if you clapped, then that would make sense.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So you did speech and debate and you performed. Do you have any interest in performing, doing any acting or anything like that past high school into college or not?
Yeah, I obviously I love performing. I've been in theater also all 4 years of high school, and so I am excited for the future to see what happens. I'm actually going to school for speech and theater education, so hopefully I'll have lots of opportunities to perform, to coach, to do lots of crazy things. But other than that, yeah, I don't know. I'm just like seeing where life takes me, I guess.
Makes sense. When you are coaching someone, how do you help a new novice maybe get over maybe like stage fright, or help a new novice who just started out speech and debate doing acting, theater side of speech and debate? How do you help someone like from a coaching perspective?
Yeah. So when I like watch younger people and I help them, one of my like go-to things to tell them is like it's more awkward to perform if you act like you don't want to perform. But if you just go wild, like it's more fun and it's like more freeing. And so I always tell young people like literally just have so much fun and don't worry about anything, because if you have fun, like really that's the point of it all. So
That's true. So when you're like on stage, you feel like you're having fun. It's so you feel like it's like just a lot of fun for you?
yeah, and there's this moment where you just forget that you're performing and you know these lines so well and you know the characters so well that you're literally just like living it. And to me, that's like the peak, and that's like the most fun you could ever have. And you don't even have to be on stage to do that. It could be in a room where you just forget that you're performing and you just are living through a script.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then when I was watching your guys' performance, I forgot I was watching a national finalist duo piece. I was just like following your guys' characters, and I was really like felt like I was in the actual scenario you guys laid out. So for the person in the audience, it was the exact same. It was like kind of the same feeling with you guys. So that's pretty cool. Did you ever? Because I heard from another. Did you ever watch the Adam and Eve, or not the Adam and Eve duo? Well, yeah, they did an Adam and Eve duo, but they also did, or the I guess the Store Everything duo.
The Big Bang.
The Big Bang, yeah, that's what it's called. Did you watch that?
Yeah.
Okay, because I watched an interview where they were were just hanging out with each other and making a YouTube video, and they were talking about how sometimes they would do little things to mess the other one up, like when they were performing. Did you ever do that with your partner, or did your partner ever do it to you, or did you mainly just get script?
Well, Tyler and we didn't really need any help to try to mess the other person up, so I don't think we would try, but there were definitely times when we would, we'd have to figure it out. So, yeah, not purposefully.
What would you do if the other person or you messed up? Like, would you just roll with it, or try to like go back and correct it, or how would you do that?
So, there have been times when Tyler and I have like really messed up. And basically our method would just be keep talking and figure it out until you get to something that you know what you're doing again. So yeah, basically it's pretty hard in a duo too, because you're like, well, what's the other person gonna say? And so you really just have to have a really good relationship with your partner and be able to work off of each other, even when, say, it's improv and you don't actually know what you're about to say next because you're trying to fix what you just messed up.
I feel like that would be really stressful, but also I feel like that could be kind of fun.
Yeah.
Like if someone messed up on accident, you would just kind of roll with it and like kind of just play off your partner. I think that would be kind of fun also.
Yeah, it is fun in the aftermath. In the moment, I think you're kind of like, oh, what do I do?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you like perform improv with your partner, or you're just with yourself to practice for doing the theater events, or did you I know you did theater, but did you do like improv specifically to practice, or was that not really how you practiced?
We never really practiced improv, but I think that comes from the fact that we just do a lot of improv in theater, and so it wasn't necessary really for us to practice outside of that.
So your partner Tyler was also in theater, right?
Yes.
Okay, so that must have made it pretty easy because both of you knew how to perform. You've been on stage. You know how to be different characters. So I bet that made it a lot easier to do a duo together.
Yeah, it did. And we've also been best friends since 6th grade or 7th grade. So we just know each other really well. We would always joke about our duo sync just because we spend so much time together that we just know what the other person's gonna say.
Yeah, you guys were the lines you had that were synchronized I thought were really good because you guys did them at like perfectly synchronized. I thought that was pretty cool. Is that hard to sync up lines between two people, or is that, would you say, like just lots of practice, or how would you sync up lines?
Yeah, basically, Tyler and I, like, if you practice with each other enough, you just feel it. And so, yeah, basically, we practiced a lot.
So do you count out in your head when you start to say the lines together, or did you just practice? It just becomes, just second nature, just to say it when you're like at the right time.
There are certain moments that we, like, when we first started, we would count them out. But then, like, by the time you get to main stage, you can just feel them. Like, the moment when we were, like, turned backwards and Tyler, like, ringed the doorbell, but I made the sound effect and I couldn't see him. Like, that started out as, like, a 4 count. But then by the time we got to main stage, it was just, like, I knew when he was going to do it.
That makes sense. Well, thank you so much for accepting this interview, and this was an awesome interview. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Have a great day.
Yeah, you too. Bye-bye.